Hello, welcome back to the show, welcome back to the AI Catholic Podcast, where we are artificially intelligent and faith. I'm your host, Vic. Tonight we've got some pretty fun, couple of fun things to talk about. Well, one maybe not so much. As always, OpenAI making all kinds of news lately. They recently released a web browser called Atlas to users who have Mac. So it's available for Mac OS. Those of us on PCs with Windows, Linux, whatever, we still have to wait. But talking with one of my coworkers who uses it, he showed me a screenshot, and again, I have not used it yet, but just from what he shared with me, it kind of looks like, kind of looks like Copilot, just in a sidebar for Edge. But I imagine, I haven't read too much on the specs, so I'm spitballing here. But I do imagine that it does have more context. It's taking screenshots of your page and probably has access to read the text that's in the page, because that is something that OpenAI has done in the past with some of their agent modes. GPT-5, I think, came with the ability to, it had two web browsers actually. One was a rich web browser that could see, it would take screenshots and see what it was that you were seeing on the page, and there was also a text browser that was more lightweight. In case that failed, it could at least grab the content that way. So they've got this new browser. It seems like it's got everything built in, but cybersecurity professionals and analysts are wary, to say the least, very concerned actually, because as we all know, LLMs have a weakness for prompt injection. And one way you can do prompt injection is with invisible text. So you can insert text into a web page or even as part of some metadata, and it would be read by the LLM, and the average user not going to see it. They might accidentally reveal it if they do a click and drag and highlight some text, but usually they're not going to see it, and bad actors could create fake websites, use SEO hacking, that's search engine optimization, to get their pages to be up in like the top 5 results for search engines, and then you go to this page and it starts telling them, to pass on credit card information, login credentials, stuff like that, telling the model to do that kind of stuff, and it would. Another potential threat or risk is the fact that these models act autonomously, and they will just start adding stuff to a shopping cart if you're online and making purchases, and there isn't always a human in the loop to stop that. So we got to be careful of that. And some of their solutions really do point towards, hey, don't be letting the models automatically be sending data and like transaction data, credentials, whatever, to a website. The user should always be in the loop to verify and confirm, yes, I want this to happen. Other news, I'm a little surprised actually that OpenAI is behind the ball on this, but also surprised that they're going forward with it at the same time. But they are reportedly, and this is from TechCrunch, reportedly developing a new generative music tool. So I know there's lots of debate about using AI for artistic endeavors, and music is, no different than other forms of media, and is definitely subject to lots of copyright issues. And if OpenAI has not obtain the right permissions and licenses to train their models on, for the music that they train their models on. As we've discussed, that's a problem. But these tools are kind of fun. I've played with one called Sumo, I will admit. And what they can do, it's really cool the way that they can actually make music. I've created a, what is it called? An RTSM model, I think, that was trained off of modal chant and Gregorian chant and MIDI files. And it would create a MIDI file of modal chant. It was a lot of fun, actually. I had fun with it. But in the end, music is just numbers. And tokens are just numbers. And a musical note is kind of like an embedding. You've got, and a chord progression is also like an embedding. You've got the intensity, the volume of the note. You have the note itself, is it an A or a G, stuff like that. So you've got the frequency that the note plays at, and then you will have your timing for the notes and what octave is it in, stuff like that. So I'm you can still tell, especially with vocals, that a song is AI generated. But it is really cool sometimes to hear what it can come up with, because again, musical notes and embeddings are just numbers, so it just kind of makes sense that they go together. And you can use these to create backing tracks with guitars. You can add drums. Like, you can take audio you've already recorded and add to it, and it's pretty fun. OpenAI, it's not clear when they're going to launch this tool, or whether it would be available as a standalone product as opposed to integrating with ChatGPT, and possibly even Sora, their video app. But again, because of the other copyright issues that they seem to be embroiled in, I am a little surprised that they are going forward with it, but also a little surprised that it took them this long. So maybe they just had, I don't know, other goals and plans, like this next bit of news, which it's been known for a while that OpenAI, they are a nonprofit, but they are restructuring to become a for-profit corporation. Now, this annoyed Elon Musk, and he probably, just because that would make them they are a direct competitor with Grok, and so he tried to sue them to keep them from restructuring, saying it went against their corporate bylaws or something. That was a while ago. Some fun drama. But recently, SoftBank approved a second installment of $22.5 billion. That is with a B, billion dollars, to complete its $30 billion investment in OpenAI, which is just insane to think about. Now, this will, once they go for profit, it will pave the way for a potential IPO. So be on the lookout for that if you're into that kind of thing for investments, or I don't know, if you're on Wall Street bets. Although I don't think anyone who listens to this show participates in Wall Street bets and options trading, but anyway, not financial advice. Just be on the lookout for that if that is your thing. I don't know. We'll see what happens with it. I do see, having started my own nonprofit, I can see how going for profit could help them out, because there's a lot of paperwork you got to do, and there's a lot of meetings you've got to set up and track, which reminds me we still need to do that. But anyway, from Meyer. But yeah, that's kind of it for newsy stuff. Today, I've got a funny story to share today, actually, from work, and a couple other side project stuff. So over a year ago, I've talked about this in other areas, but I created what I think is was one of the first agents that we recognize as being an AI agent. So this went beyond just being a ChatGPT integration and integration with OpenAI, a chatbot. And when I created this agent, initially I called it Ava. It still goes by that name, actually, AVA. And it stands for Another Virtual Assistant, because I was super creative back then. And Ava, initially, when I created Ava, it really was just a chatbot, and then I figured out a way to use voice and to do text to speech and then speech to text, or vice versa, speech to text from the user, and then taking that text and passing it to OpenAI, getting text back, and then doing text to speech via OpenAI. And so I created a voice bot, essentially a chat bot that you could talk to, and it was multilingual. So using Azure's OpenAI, actually, for that component, I was allowed to set up 4 languages, English, Spanish, French, and German. But I found that it didn't matter which way I went with it. I could speak to it. I could have the English voice going and speak to it in Spanish or German, and it would respond in Spanish or German. Now, it didn't hit the pronunciations quite right, but if I did get it to change into Spanish or German, then the accent changed too, and the voice changed, which was a little weird. But then it would actually get the pronunciations right. So that was one of the first iterations of Ava. And then OpenAI comes out with voice chat capabilities, and I was pretty annoyed because I had just figured out how to do that and was planning on trying to publish it somehow and releasing it. But then I was like, okay, what can this do though? What can it do on my computer? I want it to do things. Like, it can talk, it knows some information, but I really want it to do stuff. And retrieval augmented generation, RAG, was just starting to come into parlance and to become a process. People were starting to figure out how to do this, and I was like, okay, that's cool. I don't have a use case for it, but what's something I can get it to do on my laptop? And so I went back to, for those who don't know, a starter project for a lot of web developers especially, but I guess software developers, is creating a basic CRUD app. That's CRUD. Create, read, update, delete. So you create a basic app that can create a to-do list. So that's what I did. I figured out a way to get Ava to create a file locally on my machine and call it a to-do list, and it could write to it, it could update the to-do list, it could find specific items, line items on that to-do list and update them, which was really cool. And it could delete them. So like, I could tell it, hey, I finished this task, please delete it from my to-do list. And Ava would go out and do it, and it would print the to-do list for me to see. And it was saved as a file on my PC, so I could go get it. So that was really cool. And the way I did this was I followed a similar architecture that our API at work follows, using handlers. And so I had I created I also made an API call to get the weather and some other stuff. And the way I set it up was I had my list of functions that were all local on my machine. And again, at the time, no one else was really talking about this or doing this. I think LangChain or LangGraph, Langsmith, whatever, they had come up with the LangGraph for orchestrating stuff, for orchestrating agents. But again, it was so brand new that no one knew how to do it. OpenAI had just released the Assistance API, and their whole thing was now you can do tool calling. What is tool calling? Well, it's they did a really poor job of explaining it, but it's basically function calling. So the sorry, I had to get up and take care of a kid. Where was I? So Ava agent. The architecture, the Assistance API from OpenAI wasn't always super clear on what you needed to do for the tool calling, and they had a so I just didn't even bother with it. Not for that agent. And they had this thing where you had to like put in your tool calls and a list of them, and you would describe what the parameters were, what it was supposed to do, stuff like that, in this really weird nested JSON object. And I was like, no, not doing that. So what I did instead was locally I defined my functions, and I created a list of tool calls and gave them names, and then I would pass that list as part of the context to the chat completions endpoint instead. And the chat completions endpoint had a reason for stopping a conversation. One of those reasons was tool call, and then it would list the tool. And it could then take the context from your conversation and pass those arguments into the tool call, into the function. So I handled all of that locally instead of having OpenAI do that. So everything was done locally, and I even handled the state management locally, and that was interesting to find out about. And essentially created a 20 message context window that would slide as the conversation went on. But that was like over a year and a half ago, and it was really cool, but we didn't really have a use case for it. So I just kind of, I talked about it with a few people online, and posted about it a couple of times, and then just kind of forgot about it. But today at work I get asked, hey, could you check out this new framework for .NET from Microsoft, to see this new package from Microsoft, to see if it'll work for us. And I'm reading through the documentation, and I'm like, this sounds kind of familiar. It's interesting. And I'm doing the code along demo app thing, and I was like, oh, this is really familiar. Defining your functions locally, managing your state locally, using the chat completions endpoint, having a folder called plugins, which is your tool calling. Oh, and having a handler, a dictionary handler, which was exactly how I handled Ava's tool calling. And so I opened up the code base, and then I pulled up opened up Ava's code base and compared the two side by side and was like, oh my god, it's the exact same. And my team lead, he's right there with me, and he's like, yeah, so how's that? So I'd been asked to check to see if we had a use case for this project, if it would work, or for this package, to see if it would work for our project. And I was like, no, not the agentic framework. We don't have a use case for it. He's like, oh, how can you be so sure? I'm like, oh, because I designed the architecture for it. It doesn't fit our project, because I developed this over a year and a half ago when I also started developing the project. There's no use case for this, at least not that one. And so that was kind of funny. Just be like, oh, no, I know we don't have a use case because I designed the same architecture. So that was fun. But anyway, so that was cool. Other kind of work stuff. A few days ago, got to give a talk at Case Western Reserve University to their collaborative coding club, and that was really sweet. My manager opened up the talk, talking about our team, what we do, who we are, how our origin story, if you will. How all of us on the team had competed in a AI agents contest at work, and so from that we built this team, and every 6 months we're going to rotate people in and out of the team. And the idea, the hope, and the goal is that people who want to learn more about AI will come into the team. We'll be able to teach them, impart our knowledge. They can help build cool stuff for the company, and then they go back to their teams and they share that knowledge with people. And that's what we really want to do, is we want to be able to share the things that we learn with other teams within the company, as well as build cool stuff. Because we're private equity, we still got to make money. So we got to actually make stuff. But so yeah, after that, I presented the PPT JSON embedding model, which I talked about in the last episode. Check that out. And explained, going into it, it was funny because I was like, oh, this is going to be, a bunch of CS students. They've taken, I did not take computer science. I got a BS from an art school. I got a BS degree from an art school in culinary business management. I worked in restaurants for 15 years and then did a coding boot camp in 2020. Sounds right. Yep. And then got my job in 2022, September 22. So going into it, I was like, okay, this is going to be a bunch of CS students. They know a lot of the theory. They've studied AI, because I know that is artificial intelligence is a class that CS students take. I've got coworkers who've talked about their class. My parents, my mom, who's 65, 66 now, she took artificial intelligence classes when she was in college. My dad took artificial intelligence classes. He was born in 48. So it's not a new field. But I was nervous because I was thinking, okay, they're going to know more about this, the theoretical and the background stuff, than I will. And then we get there and find out, oh, these are first and second year students. They've maybe taken 1 or 2 coding classes. I was like, oh, so we're going to have to start from the ground up, because my talk was very technical. And so I get in there, and so I get up and I explain, okay, so my talk is going to be very technical. So let's start with this question. Who knows what unstructured data is? No one. I mean, one person, maybe. But most people shook their heads. I'm like, okay. Unstructured data, think of it as text documents. PDFs. You go online, it's just a news article, like text. That is unstructured data. Who knows what structured data is? Same kind of response. Maybe one person nodded, the rest kind of shook their heads. I was like, okay. Structured data would be like Excel spreadsheets, CSVs, comma-separated values, JavaScript object notation, JSON, what it is that we pass back and forth, structure our data with when we're passing data back and forth between databases, through APIs to clients. Anything that has a key or a header and a value to show what that key, that header, that attribute, that property, whatever you want to call it, to show what that is, what that value is. Like for me, it would be name Victor. So having to start from ground zero, just what is structured versus unstructured data, and then build up from there. Kind of on the fly, because I had already rehearsed it in my head what I was going to say and everything. So that was really, it was a good talk, but then I had to completely change it on the fly, which was a lot of fun. And we had some good questions, so that was great. And then, next up for over the weekend, I started setting up a radio telescope to monitor the hydrogen line or the hydrogen band in the Milky Way. And how does this relate to AI? Well, I want to be able to train a machine learning model on recognizing those peaks in RF data that it captures, train it to recognize where those peaks are and help pinpoint that data, and then be able to use that data to also track kind of the spin and the speed of the galaxies. So that'll be really cool. And hopefully down the line, when I'm able to actually invest some money into a nice base and everything, and some microcontrollers, set it up to scan the sky and actually maybe try to follow the Milky Way and the hydrogen line as it passes overhead. So once it gets those readings, to lock onto that and then just follow that signal. It would be really cool. Teach it how to do that. So really hoping I can do that. Funny thing happened though when I was setting that up outside. Found out that the jack I had exteriorly was not the same size as my cable, and the only online place I could find was kind of shady looking. So I go up to Micro Center, find a guy. He tells me they don't have the adapters that I needed, and so I ask him, okay, here's what I'm trying to do. And he's like, that is way above my pay grade. But would a Raspberry Pi work? I was like, yeah, that'll be fine. So now I'm going to build a remote monitoring station, and that'll be good. And then also recently found out that the submission deadline for the Chrome built-in AI hackathon that I'm participating in ends in 3 days. So this is all like this weekend. This happened. I found out that so my submission, I also took it and put it on the Chrome webstore. So it's out there. And I found out this weekend that it got approved. So you can now add it to your Chrome extensions. And what Echo does is it allows you to chat with your browsing history. So say you found an article and you want to view it later, but you don't remember where it was. You just kind of vaguely remember what it was about. So you can ask Echo, hey, what was this article I read yesterday, 2 days ago, 3 days ago, last week, whatever. Echo has two ways of retrieving that data. One, when you download Echo, it will start indexing the pages that you visit and capturing some of the content of those pages, and then create a summary of that page for the index. It can also tap into your Chrome browsing history, and so it can go into your Chrome browsing history and search through there as well. And both of those options you can opt out of. But if you opt out of both and it doesn't have a means to any data to search against, it's kind of useless, so be aware of that. But with the indexed browsing history that it creates, you can view it, you can edit it, you can remove entries, and you can completely clear it wholesale. So everything is on your device. It's all local. It stays private. It uses Gemini Nano, which is built into Chrome itself. So there is no sending your data elsewhere. It all stays local on your device. I don't collect it. It's yours. I don't want it. I don't want to know what you're searching. I'd really prefer not to know that. So, but it's a nice way to quickly look up a page you may have lost that you want to share with someone. So that's up. It's fun. Yeah, cool things happen. A couple of weeks ago, I also saw Tron Ares, and I'm still trying to I want to talk about it because it was so cool, but that's going to have to be another episode. I don't have any more time tonight, but I really, this is one I'm going to have to like write down, so there might be a blog post for it, but to go along with this. But anyway, look out for that. Thank you for your support, for listening. Make sure to like and subscribe. Share the podcast with your friends. And I'll see you next time. Take care.